Coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline, a Houthi strike on Tel Aviv with the threat of more to come. Front and center, support for Israel main stage at the 2024 Republican Convention. And healing for the traumatized and brokenhearted. Regent University collaborates with Israeli therapists to bring help to war victims. Plus, giving thanks to God for a modern-day miracle. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Yemen is claiming responsibility for a drone strike in the heart of the Israeli coastal city of Tel Aviv early Friday and promising more attacks on central Israel. One person was killed and 10 wounded when the UAV crashed into a building.
The Yemeni armed forces declare the occupied Yafa area an unsafe zone, and it will be a primary target for our weapons. We will focus on targeting the Zionist enemy's internal front and reaching deep into their territory.
Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari says Iran is behind all the wars in the region against Israel.
Simhat 3 is an Iranian weapon that was modified to increase its range. Iran supports, funds, and arms its proxies in regions like Gaza, Judea and Samaria, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen.
The U.S. military says it intercepted 4 Yemeni-launched UAVs, and it appears that a 5th got through to Tel Aviv. Israel says the drone was spotted, but due to human error, wasn't tracked properly. In other news this week, the Knesset voted overwhelmingly against the establishment of a Palestinian state, stating it would pose an existential threat to Israel and its citizens. The vote comes just days before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington for an address to Congress. The White House has been pushing for a two-state solution. Also this week, the group Human Rights Watch released a report confirming Hamas committed numerous war crimes on October 7th, including deliberate and indiscriminate attacks against civilians, including sexual and gender-based violence. The report states killing civilians and taking hostages were central goals of the attack and not isolated incidents or plans gone wrong, as Hamas has claimed. Meanwhile, Israeli families of hostages got a boost from President Trump. Hamas terrorists killed 26 Americans and kidnapped 8 on October 7th. One family spoke at the Republican National Convention, and former President Trump gave his backing.
And the entire world, I tell you this, we want our hostages back, and they better be back before I assume office, or you will be paying a very big price.
In addition to former President Trump's statement about the hostages, support for Israel was front and center at the Republican convention this week. One of the younger voices at the podium was Shabbos Kurtzenbaum from Harvard, describing anti-Semitism he experienced during his Ivy League experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome recent Harvard University graduate Shabbos Kurtzenbaum.
My name is Shabbos Kurtzenbaum. I am a proud first-generation American. I am a proud Orthodox Jew. And as of 5 months ago, I am the proud plaintiff suing Harvard University for its failure to combat anti-Semitism. I came to Harvard to study religion, the foundation of Western civilization. What I found was not theology, but a contempt for it. My problem with Harvard is not its liberalism, but its illiberalism. Too often, students at Harvard are taught not how to think, but what to think. I found myself immersed in a culture that is anti-Western, that is anti-American, and that is anti-Semitic. after October 7th, the world finally saw what I and so many Jewish students across this country experienced almost every day. When I planted 1,200 Israeli and American flags on campus, they were all vandalized within 24 hours. I was harassed by my peers merely for being a Jew and have received countless death threats online. Students and professors have openly called for new Hamas-style attacks against the United States. And perhaps most damning, when Hamas terrorists butchered 45 American citizens on October 7th, when they took 12 Americans hostage, Harvard refused to immediately and unequivocally condemn this atrocity. My fellow Americans, the anti-Semitic bigotry, unfortunately, extends far beyond the universities. Although I once voted for Bernie Sanders, I now recognize that the far left has not only abandoned the Jewish people, but the American people. The Democratic Party, the party I registered to vote for the day I turned 18, has become ideologically poisoned. And it is this poison, it is this corruption that is infecting far too many young American students. Let's be clear. The far left's anti-Semitic extremism has no virtue, and the radicalism on our campuses and on our streets has no moral legitimacy. Sadly, the far left-wing tide of anti-Semitism is rising. But tonight, we fight back.
Another loaded moment at the convention was when the parents of 22-year-old Omer Nutra, still a hostage in Gaza, took the stage.
Imagine over 9 months not knowing whether your son is alive, waking up every morning, praying that he too is still waking up every morning, that he is strong and is surviving. I recite Psalm 23 in his merit every single day. Gam ki elech begei tzal mavet, lo erara ki ata imadi. I walk through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of the death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Bring them home. 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 During the brutal October 7th attack on Israel, over 1,200 people were slaughtered. Of them, 45 were American citizens. Where is the outrage? Where is it? This was not merely an attack on Israel. This was and remains an attack on Americans. Omer is one of 8 American hostages and one of 120 hostages still left in Gaza. Citizens of 24 countries and 5 different religions, still held by Hamas, denied basic human needs, their lives threatened every day. President Trump called us personally right after the attack when Omer was taken captive. We know he stands with the American hostages. We need our beautiful son back. And we need your support. We need your support to end this crisis and bring all the hostages back home.
Coming up, Regent University sharing life-giving stabilization techniques for trauma victims. CBN Israel and Regent University are taking a unique approach in helping Israelis traumatized by the ongoing war. It involves training Russian-speaking counselors in Israel. The key is using trauma therapy techniques learned by counselors during the Ukraine war with Russia. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more on this collaboration.
After the October 7th massacre and ensuing war, Regent University involved its International Institute of Postgraduate Education in Ukraine to train Russian-speaking counselors in Israel. Together with CBN Israel and the Israel Trauma Coalition, they came up with a plan.
We've been feeling so connected to Israeli people in our suffering and your suffering, because it's very similar to what we experienced as a nation when we experienced barbarian attack on our democracy, on our freedom in the middle of the 21st century.
Here at the Maccabiah village, Jewish athletes from around the world come to train and compete in the Jewish Olympics. This week, dozens of Russian-speaking therapists have come for a different kind of training.
I'm faculty at Regent University and brought two colleagues with me from Ukraine who are trained to educate psychologists in immediate stabilization procedure, compassion fatigue, stress management, and just understanding stress reactions so that we can best fit our interventions to help people who are in pain and suffering and have some responses in war situations.
Dr. Olia Zaporozhets says trauma from war is ongoing, and the Ukrainian professionals have current experience that's valuable in the Israeli situation.
We're doing this seminar in Russian language for Russian-speaking clinicians here, that we've heard that almost 15-20% of Israeli population is Russian-speaking.
We came to talk about how to help people going through stressful events, whether that's bombings or soldiers in a trench. That is, both civilian and military.
Psychologist Katerina Krylova says Israelis were eager to learn.
Because of the war in Ukraine, they first came to teach us, and now we are able to come to Israel and share here.
Psychologist Ludmila Horodianko, who works with both Ukrainian children and adults, shared skills intended to quickly calm trauma victims.
By using these techniques, a victim can be stabilized in just 20 minutes.
They also covered compassion fatigue, burnout from listening to the psychological trauma of others.
That's why we came to share on these topics, because these conditions can be prevented.
Max Goldenberg leads the Israel Trauma Coalition, a leading agency addressing trauma among Israelis in both southern and northern parts of the country.
First, I want to thank our partners and friends from CBN Israel for bringing the wonderful team to help us to build a cadre of professionals, mental health professionals in Israel, that can address the trauma among the Russian-speaking audience in Israel.
Goldenberg says 1.5 million people here feel the impact of the Iron Swords War, either because they lost family members or share connections with the hostages.
What we need right now is practical tools that can be implemented immediately tomorrow during their work with their patients, with the families and individuals that they support.
The Russian-speaking counselors immigrated to Israel decades ago. Some are helping those who fled the war in Ukraine, as well as Holocaust survivors, soldiers, and others.
It's relevant that she understands not just that she has knowledge, she knows what it feels like to be on the inside of war, inside the crisis. This is important.
The Ukrainian girls succeeded in giving us learning days based on experience. It not only helps, but they're really tools that you can take in an orderly way and use them immediately.
They credit the immediate stabilization procedure developed in Israel by psychiatrist Dr. Gary Quinn as their most valuable tool. At the beginning of the Ukraine war, Quinn volunteered to first help therapists there, then train them to use the procedure.
All of the therapists themselves were at a very high level of stress because of the war and had to do the ISP first to calm them down.
During that time, he cites an incredible collaboration with Zaporozhye Regent University and CBN to modify and adjust the method.
The product came back in better condition, much more streamlined and much more effective and efficient in helping people.
The Israeli counselors felt enriched by what they learned.
It's really an excellent tool, and I'll use it a lot. It's not a treatment. It brings a person back to the place where he can function.
Right now, there is a lot of worry. We need many methods to cope with everything.
Zaporozhye says she's taking Israeli resilience back to Ukraine and mentioned a humorous but true Israeli saying.
All Jewish holidays are like this, and it's something that we probably need to do more in Ukraine. Yeah, they were trying to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. It's great. I'm taking it home.
She believes the key is a love for country and fighting for the future to leave a better legacy for your children. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Kfar Maccabea, Israel.
Up next, Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl expands on her story about innovations in trauma therapy. Well, joining us now in our studio is CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl. Julie has quite a story and some collaboration between Regent University, our alma mater, and also Israeli therapists.
Yeah, it really was. You know, I was personally inspired when I went there that day, talking to Dr. Quinn, who came up with this ISP method, this immediate stabilization procedure. And, you know, I've wondered, and I asked him, you know, how will Israel ever come out of this? And he said he was encouraged because the people that he's talked to and ministered to, he's seen how they come out of it. Yeah. And particularly with this ISP procedure, it brings people, they have a scale of 0 to 10, and it brings them from 10 to maybe a 3 or 4 and be able to function, right. You know, very quickly, within 20 minutes, within an hour. And that's really critical. Yeah. You're talking about soldiers coming off a battlefield. You're talking about the people he had worked, Dr. Quinn had worked with the people from Kibbutz Be'eri. And he said he saw, like within an hour and a half, he saw the changes in them. And I can't say for sure, but these are the people who are already going back and building a new neighborhood in their kibbutz. You know, which until recently you were still hearing booms in Gaza. I think probably you still are. You know, and they really went through a lot. So it was one of the hardest hit places. So, you know, to see that people are coming out of this, it's really amazing. And how they can come out of it, it's really good.
And going forward, I mean, even what you talked earlier in the show about a drone hitting Tel Aviv.
Yes.
So certainly that's trauma is really throughout the country.
Yeah, it is. You know, and if you can be able to prevent it or the post-traumatic stress disorder or bring people back really quickly, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. And, you know, Dr. Zaporozhye from Regent University, she wants to come back. And so we'll see. You know, we'll see how, I'm sure they'll want her to come back. The course was really, really successful. Everything I heard from everybody, they were very positive and very happy. So I think it's a good thing.
Great story. Great job, Julie.
Thank you.
Still ahead, offering thanks at the Western Wall for a modern-day miracle. When we come back. Many people in America believe the attempted assassination of President Trump was a miracle. Many Israelis do also. And that's why one man wanted to give thanks at one of the holiest places in all of Jerusalem, the Western Wall. James Rosenberg asked these fellow Jewish worshipers at the Western Wall to join him in reciting Psalm 100 on behalf of President Trump.
And this is a psalm that is dedicated to being thankful to God for something that happens that you want to be thankful for.
Rosenberg says what they did at the wall and what happened to President Trump transcended politics.
The issue about what we said was there was a miracle. There was a miracle that happened, a big miracle. And Mr. Trump knows it, and his followers know it, and people all around him know that there was a miracle there. If that bullet had gone a quarter of a centimeter to the other side, he'd be gone, and he knows that.
They recited the psalm on behalf of the former president.
So the way we look at things, when a person has a miracle, they have to be thankful. And I, in my saying that chapter of the Psalms, was acting on behalf of Mr. Trump because he has an obligation to be thankful and to say it at the most important place in the world, which is right over there.
Rosenberg says miracles like what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, affect the nations and Israel.
Once we recognize that something's a miracle, we recognize that for the nation of Israel, miracles are our family business. For 4,000 years, we've been experiencing miracles. Sometimes we accept it. Sometimes we go, we're not interested. But there are miracles nonetheless. And so, how to process miracles and how to deal with miracles is our business here in Israel. This is the nation of Israel and the land of Israel. And what's very important to understand is when we are thankful for the miracles that happen in the world, we bring on the redemption. And the redemption of Israel is the redemption of the whole world.
Psalm 100 says, a song of thanks, shout for joy to God, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that God is the Lord. He made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Come to his gates with thanksgiving, and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, and bless his name. Well, it's such a great story. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media and access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. You can also keep in touch by signing up for our email blasts, and please continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and for the protection of all of Israel. Let's lift up IDF soldiers in our prayers and all those caught in harm's way. And may God make a way for the hostages to come home. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.